Hans, it's not looking too promising for Greece or its creditors, is it?
No, although the exchange in Athens was up 1% yesterday. That was after falling about 3% on Monday. Here's the latest what we have. Yanis Varoufakis has promised to pay the IMF that initial 300 million euros that's due on June 5. There's a total of 1.5 billion. But here's the hitch, Mark. Yanis Varoufakis says he will pay because they will have an agreement. It's a bit of a tautology. Now, what Varoufakis was trying to do was put to rest this myth or this idea that Greece wouldn't pay. That had been floated by several government officials over the weekend. Now, you transpose that and what's happening at the G7. The G7, technically, Greece isn't on the agenda. Everyone's gathering in Dresden starting today. Clearly, it's going to dominate. And you're starting to hear that the U.S. may be pressing, and that's U.S. Secretary Jack Lew, may be pressing their European counterparts on this matter. That's according to a U.S. official. The official says that the consequences of any sort of unpredictability or any sort of issue in Greece are really very difficult to foresee, and they're concerned about its effect on global growth, on European growth. You contrast that with what we heard from Christian Noyer yesterday, the French central banker. He was talking about the sort of how a lot of the pain might be localized in Greece, that it would be very disastrous, but just for Greece. And on top of all of this, Mark, as though we didn't need any more drama in this situation, Jean-Claude Juncker, the EC president, the Commission president, yesterday gave an interview. He had some pretty harsh words about Yanis Varoufakis, the Greek finance minister. Let me read them to you. This is to the MNI news agency. He said that Varoufakis is, quote, not helping the process. At the same time, he did have some kind words for Mr. Tsipras, he said Mr. Tsipras is, quote, becoming increasingly responsible and discovering increasingly the magnitude of his tasks. More negative comments about Mr. Varoufakis from this time Jean-Claude Juncker. Unclear what this will do to the negotiating process, but it does seem to add a little more drama into it. Mark?
Does the Greek government, Hans, have any plans to increase revenues in the short term?
The other plan floated by Varoufakis is to have a 15% tax on deposits that are held by Greek citizens abroad. So these would be deposits, say, in Swiss banks. That's going to be discussed here in the coming weeks. Yesterday, they floated this idea of having a transaction tax at ATMs so that when you pull out, say, 1,000 euros of cash, you'd get taxed on it. What they want to do is funnel more purchases through the Visa and MasterCard credit card systems, because that way you can't avoid paying the VAT. However, they've backed away from that idea of putting a tax on ATM withdrawals. I know you always pay cash, Mark, so it's never an issue for you. But if you were to go to Greece, you now can take out 1,000 euros without worrying about your ATM fees.